The legislation that is currently pending before this body, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, S. 815, provides an historic opportunity for us to advance civil rights in this country, to end employment discrimination against lesbians, gays, bisexual, and transgender, the LGBT community. The United States has shown international leadership against discrimination, promoting better understanding and tolerance around the globe. That has made the security of countries better. It's provided opportunities for minority communities, and the United States has been in the forefront of those efforts. We have shown leadership internationally, and we've done that because we have taken action in our own country to protect against discrimination. Action at home helps us to provide that credibility for our international leadership. Passage of S. 815, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, would demonstrate that action, that we've taken the right action at home, and therefore we have the standing to promote better understanding globally. The U.S. leadership has been shown in many different ways. I'm very proud that one of the primary organizations that the United States has participated in that has advanced human rights is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Our local arm in participating is the Helsinki Commission. I have the honor of chairing the Helsinki Commission that includes members of both the House and Senate, along with members of the administration. We have used that role in the Helsinki Commission to promote an international agenda to deal with best practices to end discrimination on ethnic communities, religious communities, and racial discrimination. As a result of U.S. leadership, we've made a difference. We've made a difference in Europe. We've made a difference in North America. We've made a difference around the world. Today, there are special representatives under the OSCE to promote tolerance in regards to minority communities on race, the Muslim community, and the Jewish communities. We've made a difference in the Roma population in Europe, which has been badly discriminated against. We have had conferences to deal with anti-Semitism to help the Jewish communities of Europe. And we've helped religious minorities around the region. Now, the U.S. leadership is needed to help the LGBT community. We've seen countries in Europe take discriminatory actions to marginalize lesbians and gays and those who, because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, have been discriminated against. In order to do that, we need to pass the legislation before us, to give us the moral ground and to promote the core values of our country. America's core values are based upon equal rights for all citizens, and that's what we need to promote by the passage of this legislation. I must tell you, it also is important for economic advancements. If we're going to be able to adequately compete globally, we need to empower all of the people of this country. We can't leave anyone behind. I am proud of what's happened in my own state of Maryland. Maryland's had a proud history of advancing civil rights for all of its citizens. This past weekend, I had an opportunity, I guess the weekend before that, to join in the 25th anniversary of Equality Maryland. In 25 years, they have changed the landscape in regards to the LGBT community in my state of Maryland. We've passed many laws that have advanced protection for all of our citizens in our state. We have the state of Maryland's passed laws. We've had local governments pass law. Baltimore City has passed the law. Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Howard County, the list goes on. And Maryland, not only did our legislature pass marriage equality, it was petitioned to referendum, and the voters of Maryland approved marriage equality. So we have taken steps in our state to advance the rights of all of our citizens, including the LGBT community. It's been nearly a half a century since we passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prevents discrimination in employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. That's been our law now for almost a half a century. ENDA, the legislation before us, would expand that to sexual orientation and gender identity. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 has worked. It has worked. It has provided an enforcement mechanisms for those who have been discriminated against in their employment because of their race or because of their religion or because of their national origin or because of their sex. It has worked. ENDA would expand that protection for sexual orientation and gender identity. It's time that we do this. Now, 21 states have already acted, including my state of Maryland. We've passed laws. 17 states include gender identity. Federalism has worked. What do I mean by that? Well, we have seen that there's a national law. The law is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It set up the framework so that everyone understands that we won't tolerate discrimination in the workplace. It has had a workable way where those who are victimized can get remedied, because the real remedy we want is equal opportunity for employment of all the citizens in this country. It has worked. Our states have said we can go further. We can protect the LGBT community. And they have. And it's worked. And those who have said, look, we're going to have problems because of religious organizations, or we're going to have problems because of this group, that has not been the case. Federalism has demonstrated that it's now time to pass a national law to protect against those who discriminate on employment on a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. We need a national law. Now, Mr. President, I could give you many specific examples that have been shared with us. We could talk the numbers. We know the numbers. I'd like to talk about specific cases. I could talk to you about, let me just mention two people. Kimya has a master's degree in social work and nearly 2 decades of experience in the field. She was the manager of a unit of long-term care facility for those suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. She enjoyed her job and was good at it, but suffered through nearly a year of threatening messages, vandalism to her car, and slurs uttered in the halls. She was fired, her supervisor telling her, "This would not have happened if you were not a lesbian." Let me tell you a case of Linda. Linda is an attorney who relocated to this region because her partner accepted a faculty position with a local university. Linda was invited for a second interview with a local law firm. During that interview, Linda was asked why she was moving to this region, and she replied that her spouse had taken a position at a local university. The law firm asked Linda to come back for a final interview, which would include a dinner with all partners and their spouses to make sure that they all got along. At that point, Linda told one of the partners of the law firm that her spouse was a woman. Soon afterwards, Linda was told that the firm would not hire a lesbian and she should not bother coming in for the third interview. Now, in Kimya's and Linda's cases, they live in states that do not have protection for the LGBT community, and therefore there was no way to address this wrong. The legislation before us has been endorsed by the Leadership Council on Civil and Human Rights that represent over 200 civil rights, religious, labor, and women's rights organizations. It has broad support. It is supported by the American people. It is the right thing to do. It represents our core values. Our former colleague, Senator Ted Kennedy, said that civil rights was the great unfinished business of America. We're on that path. The passage of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act would be a major step forward to making us a more perfect union. I urge my colleagues to support the legislation.